Hey everyone, welcome back to the video. Today I'm going to be doing my VCT Americas Week 5 Power Rankings. Going to go through all the teams this week. Talk about most of the games because I did not watch all of them. I won't lie to you. Um, which games was it this week? It was the Furia G2 game and the C9 2G game. I did not watch. Just to be fully transparent, there's no point in watching those games at this point. Like those teams are cooked. I mean, honestly, 2G could still make playoffs, but that's kind of more to do with their group rather than how good they are. And I would imagine they would just go out instantly in playoffs anyway. Um, so yeah, like with those games, I didn't end up watching, but I think otherwise it was actually a very entertaining week in Americas. I think Americas is still one of the more fun regions to watch, just in terms of like the entertainment value of the games. I think Pacific is definitely the best to watch if you want to watch good Valorant. Um, but Americas, I think, still has a decent level to it. I think they have a bunch of teams that are good teams, but aren't going to compete on an international level at all, if that makes sense. But before we get into the power rankings, I do just want to shout out a few things. If you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, everything like that. Also, go check out my Twitter and my Discord. Links are in the description. I just posted my America's player rankings for this week. I post those on both my Twitter and my Discord, and I do it for all three regions. I did my Pacific and EMEA ones recently, so go check those out if you are interested in that. Also, go check out my Twitch. Link is in the description. I do stream on there occasionally. I'm planning on doing some streams for like VOD reviewing the China games, maybe doing some other VOD reviews for some games this week, but probably not. But definitely for China playoffs and maybe for some other like tier 2 stuff, prepping for my rebuild series, which I did a couple polls on my Twitter um and or on this YouTube channel on like the community tab on Twitter and on Discord. Global Esports did win the vote. When I went through and did my rebuild for them, I only made one change. So I might try to record the video and see how long it is and if it's like actually a good video and if I feel like I'm talking about anything of substance. If not, then I'm going to just do Team Secret because they got the next most votes. So, and I'm doing a full scale rebuild there. I don't know. I don't think that's a surprise at all. So it'll be one of those teams depending on what it is. But I just wanted to be transparent because Global Esports did win 2 out of the 3 votes on each spot. So stay tuned for that. Those will be coming after playoffs for Pacific, like in that kind of rest period. It might be during playoffs actually. It'll be kind of in the rest period between like the start of playoffs and then champs because I need to have some type of content to make throughout playoffs and then like that break period between after playoffs and champs. So those videos will be coming. I'll make one rebuild video before champs for every region. But other than that, playoff pick'ems, champs videos, that's kind of what I'm looking at for the rest of the year, and then rebuilds after champs. So stay tuned for all that kind of stuff. Subscribe, turn on notifications, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, let's get right into it. All right, so we'll start at the bottom as we always do. And obviously, got 2G and Furia at the bottom here. You could argue that 2G deserves to be in a different tier, but I think the bottom tier for 2G kind of fits them as well. So I'm just going to leave them here. Didn't watch either of their games this week. Just not worth my time, honestly. And yeah, moving on. Then we have Loud having a very close game against 100 Thieves this week. They floated their permaban in Lotus as well as 100 Thieves did. That probably was just a like against 100 Thieves thing. They'll probably go back to banning it overall. But I thought they looked pretty decent at it as well. So I don't know. Like they looked okay. Sunset I thought was really good from them. 100 Thieves was also really bad at that map. So we'll have to just wait and see like what 100 Thieves end up looking like in other games and what they end up looking like in other games on this map. Bind I thought was not great from them. I think Luke Cho kept putting himself in bad spots and not being able to bail himself out entirely with his mechanics again, like he always ends up having to. I historically have not been a big fan of how Luke Cho plays. I think he just puts himself in bad spots and then bails himself out with mechanics by surprising people. It does work a lot of the time, like he did on Lotus, which I thought he was doing a better job of not putting himself in bad spots. Um, but yeah, I think this game kind of encapsulated like what my concerns were with Lucio heading into the season, um, like into like when he was picked up by Loud kind of thing, because I watched him in tier two last season, and I was like, on him because I like you can tell he's a really good mechanical player. I didn't think he'd be this good, but he's great. I don't want to make this whole thing about Luke Show though. Like I do think they played well. Cowanzine kind of had a bounce back game finally. They were just overall kind of inconsistent throughout the series. And you kind of want to see them maybe especially on bind where they've been looking actually pretty decent. You'd rather them maybe be a little bit closer against 100 Thieves who I don't think was playing very well. I'm not going to lie. Then we have EG losing to Sentinels this week, looking really bad in that game. I still think there's something here with this team, kind of like maybe another like huge upswing for playoffs kind of thing with them. I think that's possible. But just the form of some of these players just isn't hitting the same as before. Supa has been really bad this split. As he usually is very inconsistent. He goes on streaks of being really good and then goes on streaks of being really bad. Like he's bottom 10 in Americas and rating right now, uh, bottom 5 in ACS. Like I'm not a stats guy, but it's just not good with him. Icy and Ye haven't been hitting as well as they were in playoffs. I think Ye's been fine overall, but not like amazing. And then Nature also hasn't been hitting the same as before, as well as Derek having to flex around a little bit more. I still think he's good, but the rest of the team is not performing around him. Then we have Crew in this last spot in this tier. I thought they looked good on a few maps against Lev, like Bind, and I thought they looked good on Haven. Overall, they just were not able to attack on that map because they were just rushing sites the whole half on Haven, and if they end up closing that out, they win that game because their Bind actually looked really good. They had a lot of nice set plays with like the Fade Haunt from Mazzino and then the Flash from Dante. I thought was really good. They did that a few times on B Long and got a couple kills from it. Um, and then they just kind of fell apart on Ascent. They kind of did the same thing that they were doing on Haven, where it just felt like they were tilt rushing stuff, um, and it just was not working overall. So I still think they're like a fine team and are gonna probably win a game in playoffs, and definitely could go on a run of some sort where they like all the players start hitting and then they just sweep through like the lower bracket or something in playoffs. I think that's very, very possible from a team like Crew. But they just have to prove that that's a thing that they're capable of doing first um, before I move them up or even believe in it. Now onto the good teams tier. I think these teams are just solid teams. I don't think like in Americas, I don't think any of these teams are really like competing at an international level by any means, but I still think they're solid teams in Americas that playoff contenders could definitely make champs, but aren't going to do anything there of no. And that'll start with Lev, who I believe are locked into playoffs now that they beat Crew. Maybe there's some way that Loud wins, they lose, and Crew loses, and there's some kind of three-way tie where they're out and the other two are in. Not exactly sure, but I still think like they're in a very good spot. They have some really nice players on this team, specifically with Saito. I think he's really like genuinely incredible. He was amazing in this game. This was his worst statistical performance, I believe, in a game yet, and it felt like he played the best, if that makes sense, which is kind of crazy for a player like that, where he's been playing so good all split, and then he has another game that's just somehow his best. I also think they have some other good players. Like I think just the other four guys on this team aren't like gonna take over games at any point. I mean, King has, and I think Tex and Com in the past have, but like they're all really solid and can have their moments where they win and like pop off on a round, and their roles are very defined. Unlike last split, Lev, I just think this team does look a lot better and has a lot of potential to. I think this team actually is one of the teams in this tier that could make some kind of run at champs. Um, and maybe not make it like super deep, but like make it to playoffs or something and be good there. Then we have MIBR moving down a spot, losing the NRG, who's our next team. We'll just talk about the series a little bit overall. I mean, Mata was obviously amazing. His stats to start, I think it was Lotus. He started like 0-6. His Lotus wasn't very good, but his bind was amazing. I think he had 3 aces on that map. No, 2 aces on that map, and then another one on Lotus, maybe. Yes, okay, that's what it was. Um, but yeah, he was really really good. I thought Scuba had a great game. Som played pretty well. I would say his bind was good. His Lotus, especially the attack side, was very questionable, and I think some of the attack side calling on both bind and Lotus was very concerning from Ethan. Where like on Lotus, the first like they went down 0-5 because they kept dying to the A rubble fight with the C's nade on back rubble. Like they died like I think it was either the pistol or round 3 to it. And then a few rounds later, I think it was round 5, Mata just double satcheled into it on rubble as well. So I don't know. That was a little weird. Um but I still think like Energy's in a really good spot. They're 3-1 right now. I think the record is a little bit disingenuous to how good they are. Like some people are saying that this team's like one of the favorites to go to champs. I don't fully agree with that. I think they're a really good team, but I still think the 4 teams ahead of them I would favor. Maybe not in a playoff setting. I would favor them over C9 who's above them, but overall, eh. And then I think MIBR with the champs points, I would slightly favor them, but I'm not sure. Because like, yeah, Energy's at 5 and MIBR is at 8. I think MIBR will finish over them in champs points, and I wouldn't really expect Energy to be making the final because like I think champs points are going to be really important in Americas, like getting third and fourth, because I think G2 and Sen are going to be your 2 teams making the final kind of thing, pretty easily. Maybe another team can make a run like 100 Thieves or even Energy or Lev, but I think you're going to have to get third, fourth, and depending on how many points that gives you, comparatively to the other teams, you'll make it based on that kind of thing. Then let's see more tier. I still have 100 Thieves and Cloud9 here in this order. Cloud9 destroying 2G this week. No real thoughts about that. I'm not gonna lie. Didn't watch the game. They apparently played well. They tried to knife somebody on the last round. I think it was Gobera. Um, their bind looked good. They destroyed them on bind again. They should be playing that map more, in my opinion. Honestly, they look like one of the best teams in Americas on that map when they played it. I mean, that was against Furia, to be fair, but like, I think C9's looking good. Um, there's still some holes in their game, obviously, but I think they just need to like if they can do well against G2 this week. I don't think they need to beat them. I'll feel good about them heading into playoffs, but not like really good. Like I'm not gonna pick them, but I'll be like, okay, yeah, I think they could do something in playoffs. And then 100 Thieves still didn't look great this week. It looked maybe a step up from what they looked against MIBR last week, but not the same team that you saw week 1 and week 2. So not great. I still think the players are in form. Like I don't really have any issues with how any of the players are playing outside of Cryo, who is just a stats player at this point. Um, just yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get too into that. I might make a video about Cryo. I'm not gonna lie. He's that this game was really bad from him. I will say that. But I think overall, like Cryo gets back into form in terms of just the shooting. This team's perfectly fine to make a run to champs. They're in a good spot for points as well. They're fifth. So they can just if they pass up Crew, like they win this week, Crew loses this week. I think they're in a very very good spot. Then top teams G2 and Sen. No surprises here. We already talked about how I didn't watch the G2 game against Furia. Baby Bay had an ace, which was kind of cool, and then Sen like kind of just rolled over EG as you'd expect, just because Sen's issue is kind of the like coordination with the players, and I think their mechanical skill was just kind of too much for EG in this game. So these will be my power rankings for this week. Not too much change from last week, but kind of some teams moving up and down. I think EG was definitely our biggest like riser or faller. And NRG was kind of moving up in my mind as well. So let me know what you guys think of these in the comments below, and we'll move on to the pick'ems now. All right, now into the pick'ems, where last week I went 4 or 6, about what I expect every week, to be honest. That's what I usually end up doing anyways, except for some like really good weeks and some really bad weeks occasionally. But usually I end up going 4 of 6 because I just kind of play it a little bit safer. But this week we got Crew NRG to start off. This game's actually going to be really close. I just think NRG is overall the better team. I think if you get like I mentioned in the power rankings in terms of Crew making like a deeper run in playoffs, I think if you get like a Crew that's hitting with all their individuals, like Kesnet, Dante, even like Melzer, I think is really important for them to be hitting. And then Shy and Mazzino can kind of just be a little bit more supportive. I think if you get something like that, Crew could definitely win this game, but I think NRG's just been overall more consistent, which is crazy to say about an NRG team. Then we have 100 Thieves Lev. Both of these teams are a little bit inconsistent. I think it really depends on which version we get of each of these teams, mainly with the player form. I think the way that they play the game is overall the same. Like their ideas and their coordination, everything like that. It's overall the same between each game, except for 100 Thieves on Sunset against, who was it? Against Loud, and then versus their Sunset against NRG was wildly different. They just had no idea how to play defense against Loud. But yeah, this game is really close for me. I'm gonna pick 100 Thieves just because they're higher in my power rankings. I think even if they're not hitting, like if both teams show up and are bad, I think 100 Thieves will win. If both teams show up and are good, I think 100 Thieves will win as well. So that's kind of my thought process. I think if you get a good Lev and a bad 100 Thieves, Lev win, but it just depends on what we get from each team. Then Furia EG, I'm going to pick EG just because I'm not going to pick Furia. Even though I kind of want to, just because like if Basic comes back this week, maybe I could see it. But and then also like there's some weird way for them to make playoffs. I think they need to win, then 2G and EG need to lose, and EG needs to lose against them anyway. So they need to win and 2G need to lose, and then there needs to be some weird round differential stuff probably, or map differential or something like that. I think they need to win 2-0, and then 2G needs to lose 2-0 as well. And then Furia is in playoffs, which is crazy. So keep an eye out on this game. This is actually a relatively important game, surprisingly. Then I've sent over 2G. I actually feel better about that than EG over Furia somehow. Then G2 I have over Cloud9. Even if Leaf doesn't come back this week, I think C9 is the worst team, but I do think there's upset potential. This is like a 60-40 game, honestly, if you get a good version of Cloud9. Then MIBR Loud. I'm just going to take MIBR. I think they're overall the better team, even though they did lose to NRG. I think they still played decently well in that game and should continue to be at least okay, even though their team is kind of dysfunctional. But yeah, these will be the pick'ems this week. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next week for my playoff pick'ems. Peace.